I will now show how to do intricate patterns by using the pattern brush. The patterns are going to look intricate, but yet you really won't be drawing anything that fancy. So it more just combines and your eyes kind of make it more intricate. Anyway, so I have my pattern brush open, window brushes. Get your pattern brush up there. I'm at 11 by 8.5 inches. I will hit Command apostrophe for my grid. View, snap to grid is on, very important. All right, so I have my usual palettes up. You're gonna find that this is fairly intensive on your computer graphic card. So if you have a weak graphic card, you might run into issues. If I hit my spacebar with my left hand, I can see my 1-inch squares. See these dark blue lines are my 1-inch squares. I'm going to hit Command plus until my screen no longer magnifies. I will hit Command minus 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe I'll do 10, 9, 10. Okay, so I'm going to be drawing really small. In this case, actually, I'm going to go View. I'm going to hide Snap to Grid. I'm going to uncheck it, not hide it. I'm going to uncheck Snap to Grid. And I want to just draw a blob. And it's almost like you're drawing a piece of knit or something, but you can get really creative with this. I am going to have my fill in front. I'm going to drag my stroke onto my fill. So now they're the same color. If I double click on my fill now, I can play with shades. So now I am clicking in my main color picker and playing around with the shades and clicking OK. And of course, all this is optional. Do whatever you want with the colors because there's no official rules in being creative. Now I have to draw a blob. So I'm going to click with my pen tool. I'm going to have very skinny strokes. And notice I already clicked, but I can still play with my palettes. I 0.25 as my stroke. So I'm saying I want a skinny stroke. I'm just going to do some flowing little blob. And I'm going to make that stroke skinnier. You could even create without a stroke. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do this. The main thing is that you're clicking and dragging. I'm not clicking on previous anchor boxes. I want a nice smooth blob. I will make my stroke, maybe I'll type in 0.1 for my stroke. Hitting tab to scroll through my screen. I hit Command, click away, deselect. So there's my blob. I will click on my magnifying glass and drag horizontally across the blob. I hit my space bar with my left hand or click on the hand tool over here. All right, so I have a blob, and now I'm going to create some little cheap shading kind of things. Okay, and this is really flexible. So in this case, I'm going to play with the same colors pretty much. I'm in a reddish area. Maybe I'll get rid of my stroke, make it transparent. I'm going to click on my fill color, and I'm going to play with the shade a little bit. I'm going to make it darker by clicking in my color box. See, here's my original shade down here. This is my darker shade, my new shade. Click OK. And see, I have like a little curve here, a little curve here. I'm almost kind of create like a shadowing type of a feel. I have no stroke, so that's more photorealistic. And I'm just creating blobs. I'll hit Command, click away, deselect, and I'll do it down here too. And it's kind of like looping, like I'm creating kind of a shadow. Command, click away, deselect. If I want to play it safe, I can select my blob, right click, and group it. You can always right click and ungroup it, or Command G groups it together. So there's a blob. I'll hit Command minus. You can see how small it is. I am only 2 boxes. I'm at 32 subdivisions per inch, and this is so each line is, so this is 2 30 seconds. Anyway, nothing is selected. Back to my pen tool. I'll move down a box, give yourself a little space. And this time, this blob's going to be a little bit fatter. I'm going to change my fill color. I will drag my fill onto my stroke so they're the same color, just because I feel like it. I'm going to change my stroke color in the same shade range because I want to. Okay, there's all kinds of ways to do this. I'm clicking in the main box. There's an original shade, darker shade, click OK. My stroke got really fat, so I'm going to stick with my 0.1 stroke weight. Hit tab to scroll through there. There you go. And I'm going to do a different shape, even though it can be similar. I mean, anything goes with this. And there you go. I have that shape. I hit Command, click away, deselect. Also keep in mind, I'll hit Command plus to magnify my screen, spacebar with my left hand. None of this is probably going to make any sense until you see the final thing. All right, so again, I'm going to have nothing selected. I'm going to create kind of a shadow. I'm going to play with the colors in this color range here that I'm using. It's blue, so I double clicked on my fill. Transparency for my stroke. Click wherever I want here. And I'll use the pen tool, and you can see I'm kind of creating a little shadow underneath. So I'm imagining this rolls over or something. If you don't want to hit Command, click away, deselect, click on an arrow, click away, deselect. Back to my pen tool. And you could be geometric with this stuff. You could be anything you want. I'm going to click on my previous anchor box. I will click and now create something like that. Command, click away, deselect. I'm only going to do one more object. And I do want to make it a little bit different than these objects. I'm definitely making them different, curvy. Maybe I'll go to my ellipse tool. I'll create a third pattern here. And I'm going to create an oval. I will drag my fill onto my stroke. This is really good for fine arts too, just this technique, because a lot of times in creativity, you know, the border is different, but only slightly in shading. I'll change my stroke to 0.1. Could be any number. I will center this object. I'll hide my grid, Command apostrophe. I'll hit Command plus to magnify it. All right, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to play with this. So I'm going to go to my pen plus tool, add anchor point tool. I'll click right on the edge, create some anchor boxes. So I'm creating 4, doesn't matter what you create, right on the stroke. Go to my white arrow, click on anchor box, see they're all white, that means they're not selected, so I'll select one. And I can play with these, do whatever I want, of course, with them. Play with your control arrows, or hold down Option and play with only part of the control arrow. So you can use objects and create stuff like this, and so this is definitely a nice different shape. I click away to deselect because I'm already in an arrow. And now I'm going to reverse my colors here. I'm choosing not to have a stroke. I will now go into a lighter color. I was always going darker, but maybe in this case, and I'll click on my pen tool, I'm almost going to highlight as if there's light shining on this. So you can almost imagine that you're creating like a thread, even though it doesn't look like it. But if you really want to get precise, magnify a thread, an actual thread, right, and draw over it. Put it on your first layer and draw over it. So again, I'm kind of going wherever I want, really. I'll maybe do one more highlight here. And then my next step is I'm going to happily drag this into the brush palette. All right, so this is an advanced pattern. I should really group these individual things, so I select this, right, black arrow, group it. Spacebar with my left hand, moving around, unless you want to click on the hand tool here, all right, do it that way. All right, black arrow, select all of this, click around it, drag, group it, Command minus. I had already grouped my first one. And now I'm going to make these all pattern brushes, so I select with my black arrow the first one, drag it into the pattern brush, click on pattern brush, click OK. Find something here for the center box here that covers this angle. I will go into auto-centered. Everything else is fine. I could change my none to U shift or tints or whatever. I'm not going to. The key color that would change is red. All right, I'll do the same thing with this. Because it's grouped, I can just click on it, so it's real nice. Click on pattern brush. I'm just repeating myself, right? Find something for this center thing. I'm just clicking on auto centered, clicking OK, and then I'll drag the third piece in. All right, again, drag it into the brush palette, new pattern brush, click OK. I'm never going to go that sharp in my pattern, but I'm choosing something anyway. Auto centered, click OK. See, you can see something happened here. It didn't select everything. I don't know why. Command Z is undo. So what I'm going to do is take this pattern I didn't like, drag it to the garbage can. There you go. Click on this, drag it in again, hit pattern brush, because I had grouped it, so maybe I was in the white arrow, but now I can see it's okay. Auto centered or whatever. There you go. You got your 3 patterns. Keep in mind, if you want to, you can click on a pattern, drag it to the page next to the garbage can. Now I have duplicates of it. I'm going to drag it up in between 2 other patterns so I can put it wherever I want. Sometimes you want to do that. You can have separate patterns because you want to do different things to it. And now here's the fun part. I'm hitting Command minus a few times. You usually would want snap to grid on at this point. All right, I'm hitting Command minus a couple more times. Space bar with my left hand to move my file around. This is going to get labor intensive for your graphic card. You might have issues because there's actually a lot going on. I've hit Command minus, so I have a nice view of my canvas. I'm clicking on these patterns here. They're in my canvas. See how I click and drag to select them? First time it didn't work. I'm going to hit Command X to cut them away. I'm going to hit my space bar with my left hand. I'm going to click in the work area. I hit Command V to paste. Oh, I was hoping they would move with me, but they didn't, so I just click on them and move them. I just want to get them out of my artwork area. Now, you can go to any tool you want, but I'm going to go into the rounded rectangle tool. If you double click on it, on the tool, and click on the screen, you can see that this is what my rectangle options are. So I clicked on my rounded rectangle. Here's my options. 3.875 is the height and width, 5.28. That doesn't matter. 0.1667 is my corner radius. I don't know what yours is. I'll hit cancel, but that's the main thing. Your corner radius, have it set to something like that. I'll hit Command plus once or twice. I'm going to, with my rounded box tool, I've snapped a grid on, I hope, even though you really wouldn't have to, but I am going to. So there's view, snap to grid. I'll put it on now. I'm going to create with just a stroke color. Don't have to. I will hit Command plus a couple times. Here is my pattern. And now I'm going to do something cool ahead of time. And maybe I will make my stroke black just so you can see it. I have not used use shift, so nothing matters. I am going to click on my line. I will click on my scale tool. Right here's my scale tool. I'll double click on it so I can get to my options. Where to scale, I'm click on uniform. It's default to that. I'll click on the scale. Maybe I'll make it 80. This number is very flexible. I hit copy. Everything else is fine. But you want scale, stroke, and effects clicked on. I mean, it already is, but that's important. You want transform objects, transform pattern clicked on, click copy. So now I have a pattern there. And maybe I'll do it one more time. I might have to edit this, change it. Maybe I would do this after I do my magic patterns. But double click on the scale tool again. The center one is clicked on. Maybe I'll go with 80 again, just hit copy. I'm going to double click on it again. Or if you have Command D, so if you hit Command D, it repeats your last move. So that's a really great little shortcut. So I'm just keep hitting Command D and it repeats my last move. It doesn't matter how many circles you have in here or ovals or whatever they are. And you can actually delete them, do whatever you want with them. I will hit Command apostrophe to hide my grid. Again, this is 2 little dashes next to return. I will click on my outer oval. I will click on my first pattern. There you go. There is a pattern. Right? I can always double click on the pattern. Make sure your preview in the lower corner is clicked on. I can play around with the size. Here's scale at the top. Right? So I'm going to bring it up a little bit. This is all very flexible. I'll just click OK. Apply to strokes. Very stupid question, I guess, unless you want to leave it, leave it and not do this. I'll click on the next one. All right, there's my pattern. I'll double click on the pattern. All right, play with my scale, get to how I want it to look. All right, okay, apply to strokes, unless you don't like it. I'll click on the next pattern, but this time I'll click on the blue, which was my duplicate one. All right, so I click on that. So now I can, maybe I'll change it to U-shift. All right, so you can see it's going to take the, I'll click OK, apply to strokes. For some reason it's red, so I'm going to click on it. I'll click on green. I don't know why it went into red, but now with my stroke in front and this selected, all right, so my red color is selected, my stroke is red. I can have a lot of fun playing with the colors. So this works really well, of course, when you're dealing with one or two colors, and you'll notice it was the blue color, it was my key color. That's the color that's changing. Double click on this. But play around with tints and shades. Sometimes it gets rid of the stroke. It does all kinds of things. Like here's tints and shades. Click OK, apply to strokes. Make sure it's selected. Click on it. See if you see anything happens. There's tints and shades. I will change this. And there's a good chance you'd have to hit Command plus a bunch of times to magnify to see if there's what's happening. A lot of times it's subtle. But again, I click on it. I'm going to play around with my scale. Okay, I'll just click OK. Apply to brush strokes. Click on the next ones. I'll probably delete some stuff. But the next one, click on this blob. I could always double click on my scale tool. Actually, I'll hit cancel. I can click on my scale tool, pardon me, and I can drag horizontally and change the size that way. If I drag vertically, it works that way. So that's really cool too if you want to adjust the size this way. All right. And all right, so I'm really just playing around. I'm going to click on my pattern here, drag it to my page next to the garbage can. Now I just duplicated that pattern. I'll click on my next circle. I'll delete this circle, or I'll actually make it really small. Click on my scale tool. I'll make it very small. I'm dragging horizontal and vertical, and I'm going to click on my original blob. So now I get a weird little effect like that, which is fine. Keep in mind, so if you want to just change this blob here, it's highlighted, but I don't want to change the outer blob. Then I just go to the stroke palette. I'll make it 3. Didn't like that, so I'll change it to 2. And didn't like that, so I'll keep it at 1. All right, and that's fine. I'm clicking on this inner circle here. I will select my new blob here. I will double click on my new blob pattern. I will change it into U-shift. Clicking OK, click apply to strokes. Change the color on U-shift. All right, go back to my scale tool, or you can click on your black arrow and scale it that way. Right, but I'm doing it through the scale tool. I'll drag it horizontal first. And I'm saying, okay, I'll do it the traditional way, black arrow. I can click on my bounding boxes, so you really can do this any which way you want. All right, I will now double click on this option. Maybe I'll raise the size a little bit. This is all, again, very arbitrary. So there is my pattern. Click OK. Click apply to stroke. So I have this pattern here, and I can do all kinds of things with it. All right, so of course you can edit it, but I take my black arrow. So the first thing I want to do, in case my computer blows up, is drag it into my palette. I'm going to click on pattern brush. I click OK. I dragged it into my pattern brush. So that's the first thing, drag it into your pattern brush. You do want to select a pattern for this spot here. All right, so I have to go in between. Auto overlap looks good, you know, or I create, if I'm drawing these angles very sharp, I could actually take my original pattern here, duplicate it and place it, create the pattern, repeating pattern, and then place it in there. So, you know, sometimes you do that, but I'll click on that one, that's fine. Command minus is undo. Another thing I can do is select my pattern, all right, with my black arrow, and drag it into my swatch palette. All right, so now I hit Command minus. All right, I can make a big object. Click on it, have your fill in front. I click on my swatch palette, and you can see you have a nice pattern, sophisticated background, Command plus of this pattern. See, we just did simple blobs, but your eyes will kind of create the actual artwork. I do fine art painting, so if you look at a fine art painting really close, it can look really sloppy, but your eyes will kind of fix everything. So that's one thing, just using the fill palette and creating some type of background and pattern. And of course you can double click on the swatch palette, right, and you can play around with the grid. I cover this in my class there. You see how the grid shifts. So you can do all kinds of different things. And then I have to get out of this, click on this arrow here, exit pattern. All right, so I cover that in the swatch palette, but you can see how advanced you can really get on this. All right, so that's one thing I'm going to do, but here's another thing I can do. All right, because things change, so I can go Command plus, Command apostrophe from my grid. View snap to grid is on. View snap to grid is on. I take my black arrow, select the entire object, and I click, and I create a pattern right here. So I have my pattern sitting in one of my grid boxes. All right, and then I can click on the pattern, and if I want, I can select the entire pattern, because you can have groups within groups. Right click and group it. All right, now I take my pattern, I hold on Option, I click and drag, and I create another pattern right next to it. Okay, and this pattern next to it, I'll go to my white arrow plus tool, because that handles anything that's grouped, and I can edit this pattern. All right, so I'm going to change it. I can hide my grid to make this easier to look at. Okay, but I don't want all my patterns to change. So this is a little advanced. I can drag my pattern to my page next to the garbage can. Now I have a duplicate pattern. So if I click on this, make sure you click on your duplicate pattern. Click on the pattern to get to your options. Change it to U-Shift. Click OK. Click Apply to Strokes, and now it's black because my stroke is black. So just change it to something else. Make it a lot different though. I mean, make it a bit different. So I'll do the same thing with this one. So this blue here, okay, lights up here. So I'll just click on the, but it doesn't light up here. See, I click on the blue here, that lights up. So these two are the same. So I'll click on this blue, click on this pattern, and double click on it. U-Shift Tints and Shades was on, that's fine. Choose some color in the palette, right? So now I'll click on the next pattern. Okay, I look to see what lights up. It should match this pattern here. You see the blue lights up on this, blue lights up here. But what I can do, maybe I'll just click on this pattern. So I click on a different pattern. So do whatever you want. Now I click on this pattern here. So I'm just editing things, making them look different. I clicked on this pattern here. But I'll click on this one, so this takes on that pattern. Again, U-Shift is on. All right, so U-Shift is really great. I will choose something. Maybe I'll stay in the greenish palette, and then I'll just quickly click on this pattern here. I look to see what's lit up. This pattern's here lit up. So maybe I'll just click on some other pattern. All right, so I click on that pattern, and then with this one, because that was this pattern, I'll click on this one. All right, so that is whatever. Just edited it. If I click on my black arrow and click on this, everything is grouped together. All right, so that's what's really great. So these two patterns look different. Take my black arrow, and what I can do is hold down Option, click and drag, and I'm duplicating this pattern. If I hold down Shift, it goes in alignment, and then release the mouse. All right, if you can't do that, hold on Option, hold on Shift to reduce alignment, go to Window Alignment to align these. They really should be aligned. Then I select the two bottom pieces. All right, so I want to select the two bottom pieces. I want everything to look different. One cool thing you can do is you can double click on your reflect tool. All right, there's my reflect tool, about 6 from the top, but I do have the tear off there. So the bottom two patterns are clicked on, but I double click on the reflect tool. Right, so I have this option available, and what I want to do is reverse it. See where it says vertical 90? That's good. You also have horizontal, so I can do things there too, but this is vertical 90. It flips over this center line. Click on preview to see if that's what you like. All right, so you can see that it did that, And I'm saying that's okay, good. I just reversed it. All right, so I'm now editing these. Command apostrophe for my grid. What I can do is select the two ones to the right with my black arrow. They are grouped, which is really nice. I'm using the side arrow on my keyboard to kind of refine these. All right, so now I have two patterns that look different. Okay, so that's what I have done. Command apostrophe that changes the grid. All right, so that's nice. And then what I can do is select all my patterns with my black arrow. This is getting very graphic card intensive. Hopefully you're not having issues. I can hold down Option, click and drag again. I'm going to hit Shift because I like to align them. All right, and now I'm saying maybe I want to double click on my reflect tool. All right, there's reflect. I have it on my tear off. That's why I always keep these things open. Double click on it. And instead of doing the vertical, I'll click on horizontal. All right, so there's horizontal. All right, you can see if you like it, but I actually don't because these two objects are matching up here and I want everything to be different. I can see if vertical does anything for me. It really doesn't. So I go back to horizontal. I will click back to vertical. I will hit cancel. So there's nothing there that I like. So in this case, I could edit and change things or just leave it alone. All right, because here's my pattern. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get really fancy. I'm going to click on this object here. So I clicked on the entire object with my black arrow. All right, you can see there's a question mark for the stroke. I'll hit Command plus so you can see what I'm doing. I always hope my computer doesn't crash at these points. And I'm going to choose a nice lovely color. Maybe I'll stick with blue. So I'm changing this pattern here a little bit. I'll click on, with my white arrow plus tool, I'll click on this blue here. See this inner blue. I'll play with my stroke. All right, I'm going to click on this pattern here. I will click on a different shade. All right, so I'm kind of just editing. I'm going to click on this pattern here. So I'm just clicking on these different patterns and kind of arbitrarily changing stuff to see if there's something I like. All of this, of course, is optional, but maybe I'm going to, and then I'll click on the outer pattern with the white arrow plus tool. So I'm just kind of editing, playing around. See, I'll just click on different colors. And then what I could do if I want, I click and drag with my black arrow. I selected these two patterns here. Click on your reflect tool. And for me, it is at my tear off at the top. Double click on it so you can use it. I'm going to go vertical. Click on vertical. That's the default. It clicks over this center line. That's what it means by clicking vertical. I will click OK. All right, so I just reversed it. So for all of that, I just wanted to create some fancy patterns. So you can see from doing a very simple little blob thing, I get a really complicated pattern. And now what you can do is you can select the entire object with a black arrow. You can always hold on Option, then Shift, click and drag, create your patterns. You can play around with the pattern, reflect things, change this if you want to alter these things. For me, this is good. Even though maybe I'll select these two patterns at the bottom here, go to my reflect tool. I'll just reflect them. I'll just click OK. Vertical 90 is fine. All right, here's another fancy thing you can do. So you can duplicate by doing that. But you can see I'm actually creating like a really fancy crochet. But this could be a pattern used in graphics also. And the whole point is you created a very sophisticated pattern without doing that much, just creating 3 blobs. That's all I did. Now black arrow, I'm going to really get fancy. I select the whole thing, double click on your reflect tool. If I hold down Option, and I'm going to click on actually let me hit cancel. All right, so what I'm going to do is I select the entire object. I did it in the wrong order. With my black arrow, select the whole object. Click on your reflect tool, then hold on Option, and I'm going to use this right line here, at the very far right, as my center line. So I click. You want to say vertical 90 and hit copy. It's going to duplicate to the right, heavy on your computer, so be careful. All right, and then I'll do this again. Let's get really fancy with this. Black arrow, select my entire object. Click on your reflect tool, hold down Option. Now double click on your center line, but this is going to be the center line down here at the bottom of my crochet or whatever I'm creating. Okay, it doesn't matter if you go left or right, but it has to be right at the edge. Wherever you put it, it's going to reflect accordingly to the bottom. So I clicked on my screen. Now change it to horizontal. Horizontal 0 is what you want. You can see with preview on. Click on and off on preview. You can see it's doing what I want. Hit copy. And now you have a really sophisticated crochet. I'm hitting Command S just to save my work, even though your computer automatically saves it if you have up-to-date stuff. I'm going to call this class crochet. This is when things blow up. Okay, so you have to be careful. So at least I'm saving my work. This is pretty advanced. Click OK. I'm just clicking OK. And really, if I was doing this very advanced, I would have a lot of patterns in my pattern brush. I'd be duplicating these patterns, so I would have a lot of flexibility, and that would make it, very advanced. For this class, this is like the, let's do this in 10 minutes. All right, so if you didn't know how to do this, it could take you 3 days to create something this advanced. And you can see, of course, here, too, because of the way I did it, I'd be reflecting and reworking stuff. But I only played with 4 patterns, so it's really kind of hard to get it all random looking, even though you might not want random looking. Hope you enjoyed the class. See you in the next class.